What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Love and Rise podcast with your host, Aunt Ma.
And your other host, Christina Ma.
And we hope you guys have been enjoying the new episodes that we release every week on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and CastBox. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're on it. So make sure you guys tune into new episodes every Wednesday at 6 a.m. They're full 1 hour episodes. And then on YouTube, where some of you guys are watching right here, we are releasing 20-minute videos 3 times a week. So I hope you guys have been enjoying them. Let us know if you like the broken down ones or if you like the full hour episodes. I've really been enjoying a lot of the topics that we've been talking about. If you guys have something that you want us to talk about, let us know in the comments. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the pressures of growing up in an Asian family, because we all know that they ask for a lot. They think they know it all, and it's just a lot to deal with in an Asian family. And, for you, Christina, you are the oldest daughter in your family. How is that for you growing up?
I felt like being the oldest girl in the house, and I was the oldest girl, or the only girl for a while before my sister came. And I felt like the treatment was different. The expectations were different.
What was different?
I felt like it was kind of like, I would say probably like gender roles, and the expectations were, I feel like they were more laid back with my brothers. They didn't really expect too much, like even with going to college. They were just like, okay, well, if they graduate, great. But for me, it was like, okay, well, you have to make sure that you get your degree and get a good job. But you also have to make sure that you're going to be a good wife. You can take care of the household. You can cook and take care of your husband and your family and things like that. So I feel like there was more pressure in a sense to be able to do all of these things. Whereas like with my brothers, it was kind of like, okay, well, you guys are the older kids in the family, but we'll just let you do what you can do.
Who was telling you that stuff? Your mom or your dad?
I would say it probably came from both, but at the same time, it probably came more from my mom, because this was like the role that she had growing up, like being an Asian immigrant mom. Like she had that like perfect, or what she thought was a perfect image of what a wife should be, I guess. So that was like probably the main role that a woman should be taking in her life, if that makes sense.
So they never told your brothers that they have to cook, they have to do things for the house, stuff like that?
No. So we would always, when I think back about it, my mom, whenever she would cook, like I would always be there and I would watch her. But at the same time, like she wasn't really teaching me. She was just showing me what she was doing. So I was like kind of watching, but I wasn't like, okay, well, this is what I need to do. Oh, this is how I should make this and that. Because I think it started at such a young age too, where I wasn't really thinking about that stuff. And then my brothers would just be on their own. Like my oldest brother, he'll be on the computer, just like online talking to friends. My other brother, he'll be like watching TV or listening to music in his room. But I'm like there with my mom most of the time, trying to learn all these things. And she's teaching me all these chores to do. And I have to set the table. I have to make sure that like everything is like set out, all the food, make sure it's all plated, like for the whole family. And everyone's just doing their own thing while I'm getting all that together. And then everyone just comes together.
I wonder why there's that expectation and why your brothers get to chill and you had to be the one doing things for the entire family.
I don't know. I feel like just back then, the expectations were so different. And I feel like the women had to do everything for the household. So it was kind of like having to cater to the husband and the men of the family.
Now, I guess growing up as the oldest girl in the family, were there certain things that you had to do for your parents? Because now they're immigrants, right? They just came from China. They don't speak much English. I don't even know if they can read English. So I know that with all of my Asian friends, like they always had a duty. My cousins, they're like my uncles and aunts, they didn't speak as good English as my parents.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that they always had to do. And I'm sure every kid had to do this for their parents. Like you guys had to translate things. Like did you have to do any of that?
All the time. So, well, I guess back then when I was younger, they didn't come to me as much for like having to get like official documents filled out. Like they would go to my older brother for that. But now that, my family, my brothers and sisters, all my siblings are not in California. I'm like the closest to my parents, but for a while, like they've been out of state and they would go to me for everything. And now that we're in Las Vegas, every time we go back to my parents' house, like you see it, they have this whole stack of papers that they need me to help translate. And it's like, okay, what do I need to do here? Can you fill this out for me? Where do I send it to? So I'm like basically trying to do all of that for them.
What are these things that they're asking you to do?
It's just like documentation for, let's see, for like medical insurance, or if they have to like fill out, I don't know, there's just always forms to verify things, right? Like income, stuff for their taxes.
So this is what I don't get. Are they actually doing this because they don't know what to do? They don't know how to read? Or are they just doing it because they're taking advantage of their kids? Because before you were born, your parents were still in America, right?
Right.
They're already here, right?
Yeah.
And so they're already filling out all these medical forms while they're like, hey, we're pregnant. We're going to have a baby. We're going to have a kid. They're going to the doctors. So they've already done it, right? Before you guys are even here. And then now that you guys are like old enough to go to school, now they're filling out forms for you to go to school.
Right.
Like, who is doing all this for them before you were born? And now why are you doing it after you're born?
Yeah, so I think before, they probably always went to like doctors who were like Asian or who could speak Chinese. So they would always be able to find people that like were able to translate, and they would have forms that were in Chinese, right? And, they would have like my uncles and aunts to help them translate papers. And I think now they're just like, well, we have kids, they're grown up. Like, what do we have kids for? So they're trying to like, I wouldn't say take advantage, but they're trying to utilize us because, parents do put in so much time and effort into like raising their kids and stuff. So it's like, I think at this age, it's time to like give back and try to help them, make things easier. So they can read English. I feel like they can understand the paperwork, but they're just like, here, let me give this to you real quick. So you could just double check and make sure everything is correct. And it's like, oh, but since you're doing it, you might as well just fill out the whole thing and then just tell me where to send it. And
Last time I saw you helping your dad with jury duty papers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, I'm sure he's gone that a million times. And then you're teaching him like what you need to do. You need to call them.
Yeah.
And things like that. And it's like, dude, he's probably done this a million times.
He knows how to do it. But I think when I'm there, they're just like, okay, let me just pile up all this stuff and just save it for when they're actually coming, just to make sure she goes through everything. So I'm like, I don't mind. But sometimes it takes forever. Like there's so much stuff to fill out.
I just think it's funny that at some point when you talk to your parents, when I talk to my parents, they're always like, what do you know? Like, I know more than you because I'm older than you. I've been through it all. They try to teach you things,
Yeah.
And so when you argue with your parents, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I know everything, right? And then when it comes down to like this paperwork stuff, they know nothing. And it's like, now you're the smartest person in the world. Like, I don't get it sometimes with these Asian parents, right?
They're stubborn, but they can be very smart about things too. And I think when they have us do all of this paperwork for them, that's just them being smart.
Yeah, because they can do it on their own.
Yeah,
they're just being lazy.
I mean, yeah.
Right. So for me, I never had to go through that in my entire life because my mom is an ABC, American born Chinese. So she was born in San Francisco. But all of her siblings, they were born in China. She was the only one that was born here. So because of that, she was my dad's translator.
Oh.
So I didn't have to do anything. And I still don't do that stuff. My dad gives everything to her to read and fill out and stuff. But yeah, like I get it. Now when I think about it, my dad also goes to Chinatown to use the Chinese doctors, gets the Chinese medicine and stuff like that. But there are times when they do have to go to an American hospital and get procedures, and I don't know, like they still know what to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like your mom has been there for your dad, like for everything. So if he had to go to the hospital or anywhere, like she would be there to help like translate and fill out paperwork.
I guess I don't have that pressure that you had when you were a kid of, making sure you read every single word of every mail that comes in. But I guess I have different pressures.
What are your differences? I mean, I do notice though, because it's weird because I've always had my parents ask me like about all these forms and like just paperwork and mail that comes in. But for you and your family, you're the one that if you get mail, you go to your mom and you'll ask her about stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, it's just so different. Like, the dynamic is the complete opposite.
But now I don't even ask my mom because when I ask her, you could see that she's tired.
Yeah. Yeah, because she's been doing it for your dad her whole life.
So she's like, okay, let me see this. And she's
get
trying to
it.
read it. I'm just like, damn, she don't even want to do this right
Yeah.
now. So I just stopped asking my mom for help on certain things.
I understand now.
Yeah, I get it.
It's a lot.
So, you know, when we were young, we ask our parents for a lot of things. When we're older, it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
The asks are different. So it's like, even when I was a kid, I understood that my parents left China, or my mom's family left China at some point as well, that they sacrificed a lot to come here for us. Right.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid, it's like, there's different levels of understanding that compared to now. Mm-hmm. Right. Like when you're a kid, did you understand any of that sacrifice that your parents made for you?
I mean, they would say it, but then I wouldn't really
It wouldn't click
understand the severity of what they went through.
Like we're talking about middle school, high school time, right?
Yeah. And they'll be like, yeah, we had to go on this boat. We had to leave our family. Some people were swimming in the ocean and all these things. And I was like, wow, that sounds really crazy. Like just a story out of a book. But then like till this day, my parents will still tell us all of these stories. And my brother was even telling my mom, like, you guys have been through so much trying to immigrate from China to the US. Like you should actually write a book for all the stories that you've gone through.
So when you heard the stories from your parents about fleeing China and stuff like that and coming on a boat, how did you take it as, as a teen?
As a teen, I don't think I really fully appreciated it because every time that they would bring it up, it was like part of a lecture or me getting yelled at. So it's like,
that's true.
Right. So it was like, it wasn't like a conversation. It was more of like you're doing this and you're getting in trouble here, but like, do you know what I did to get us here and to try to give you a better life? And that's when like I wasn't absorbing it as a teenager.
That's true. So your response to your parents when they tell you those things during that moment of getting scolded, you're never saying, oh, thank you for sacrificing so much.
Yeah.
It's just more of like, okay.
Yeah, but I feel like that's why they're still doing that now till this day. Like I will still find out all of these stories that I never knew about my parents. And it's just different because growing up, my mom specifically was always like, you don't understand what we went through and you don't understand the headaches and pains of having children until you have your own.
Yeah, now I fully understand.
Yeah, so now that we have kids, she's like, do you get it now? Just wait. When they get older, it's going to get even harder and they're going to test you and you're going to finally understand like what we went through and how hard it is to actually be a parent. Like
there's certain things that they tell me about, parenting and things like that. But those repetitive stories that they still tell us, now I understand them in a totally different way to where it affects me more emotionally. So for example, my dad used to tell me that, when he was young, he lost his dad and then he was homeless and things like that. And maybe one day we'll get my dad on this podcast and he can tell us about that whole story because it's crazy. Oh my gosh,
your dad has a lot of stories.
He has a lot. I would love to get him on the podcast. But so I'll give you just a little bit of what he tells me. And so my dad was homeless at 8 years old, right? And things like that. So when I was a kid and he was telling me those things, I'm like, okay, so that's why I never met my grandfather because he died,
right?
And stuff like that. So I only understood it as why I never had a grandfather. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now when my dad tells me those stories, I'm like, damn, this is why my dad acts the way he does because he never had a father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
That's why he's like, my relationship with my dad and my family is like, everyone's so distant from each other.
Right.
We're all like black sheeps in the family. We're dysfunctional almost, right?
Yeah.
But it's because my dad never had a dad to teach him anything. And so I never had that sympathy when I argued with him or like didn't understand where he's coming from until now. Now I have the sympathy and I'm just like, and I'm like, okay, I get it. This dude didn't have his dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is the way it is.
That's why I feel like it's just so important to have your parents in your life because when you're younger, you don't really think about that stuff. But as you get older, you're like, oh, now it makes sense why this person does this and why this person is this way. It's because of their upbringing and what happened with their parents and growing up, like, and the dynamic of the family and stuff. So you don't really think about like how much that affects other people until you actually go through it.
What is something that affected you the most? Or I guess the biggest pressure for you growing up?
If I really think about it, I feel like the biggest pressure growing up with my family is maybe feeling like I was responsible and had to make sure that I took care of the whole family. So, for the guys, right, it's like, oh, you need to have that pressure of making sure that you can take care of your entire family financially. But I think for me, there was always that pressure of making sure that I take care of my entire family by taking care of all of the little things in the house. So it's like, you say a lot of little things around the house, right? But that's actually a lot of little things that become major things. So it's like you see that I'm always like trying to do stuff around the house. I'm trying to make sure that the kids are taken care of. And I just try to make sure that I get things done for everyone. But at the same time, it's like it becomes a lot. And especially now that we're in an even bigger house too, like the pressure of making sure that everything and everyone is taken care of, like, is just so much. And I feel like that actually makes sense now because growing up, like, I had to take care of everyone in the house.
If you guys feel the same way when I guess you were a child and now being an adult, are you feeling the same pressures that Christina feels? Let us know in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to check us out on Spotify, YouTube, all podcast platforms.